Long before cities rose from the ground, before metal rang beneath human hands, before words were carved into stone to resist forgetting, there existed a different kind of intelligence on Earth. Quiet, embodied, and deeply attuned to forces we no longer perceive. We call them prehistoric humans, a term that subtly implies ignorance, trial and error, a slow crawl toward enlightenment. But what if that assumption is wrong? What if prehistoric humans were not merely surviving, but understanding? Tonight, as you listen, imagine peeling away electricity, screens, schedules, and walls. Imagine a world where knowledge is not stored in devices, but carried in memory, muscle, and myth. Because for more than 99% of human history, this was reality. And during that vast stretch of forgotten time, humans did not dominate the world. They listened to it. The night sky was not an abstract concept. It was a map. With no artificial light to dim the stars, prehistoric humans lived beneath a moving ceiling of meaning. The sky marked time, migration, danger, and opportunity. Without telescopes or equations, they tracked celestial cycles with a precision that still unsettles modern researchers. This knowledge was not written down because it did not belong on paper. It belonged in the body, passed through ritual, gesture, rhythm, and story. Archaeology once portrayed prehistoric people as reactive, primitive hunters clinging to life in a hostile world. But discoveries over the last century tell a more complicated story. At sites like Göbekli Tepe, massive stone pillars were erected over 11,000 years ago, before agriculture, before permanent settlements, yet arranged with symbolic and possibly astronomical intent that scholars still debate today. Why would nomadic peoples invest such effort into monuments that served no obvious survival function? What if survival was not their only priority? Across Europe, structures such as Stonehenge and Newgrange align precisely with solstices, moments when the sun appears to pause, die, and be reborn. These were not accidental alignments. They required long-term observation, generational knowledge, and a shared understanding of time that stretched far beyond individual lifespans. What if prehistoric humans understood time not as a line, but as a living cycle they were part of? To them, the universe was not inert matter. It was alive. Mountains were not resources to be extracted, they were ancient presences. Rivers were not obstacles, they were beings in motion, carrying memory from one place to another. Animals were not inferior forms of life, they were teachers, mirrors, and sometimes messengers. Every hunt was preceded by ritual, not superstition, but acknowledgement. Taking life demanded balance. Modern humans define intelligence as something that happens inside the skull. Prehistoric humans experienced intelligence as something that happened between things, between human and animal, between fire and wind, between sound and silence. They listened not only with ears, but with attention sharpened by necessity. Subtle changes in birdsong could signal danger. Shifts in wind could predict storms. A single footprint in the dirt could reveal age, speed, emotional state, even intention. This was not magic. It was perception trained by immersion. Studies of modern hunter-gatherer societies show extraordinary memory, spatial awareness, and pattern recognition, abilities that decline rapidly when replaced by sedentary, screen-based lifestyles. What if our brains did not evolve to be distracted, but to be deeply present? Then there is the question modern science struggles to approach without discomfort: consciousness. Prehistoric humans regularly entered altered states, not as escape, but as exploration. Through drumming, chanting, fasting, breath control, and carefully guided use of natural substances, they accessed modes of awareness that dissolved the boundary between self and environment. In these states, they reported encounters with ancestors, animal spirits, intelligences embedded in landscape. We call these experiences myths or hallucinations. But what if those words are simply placeholders for phenomena we do not yet understand? Neuroscience now confirms that human consciousness is far more flexible than once believed. Rhythm alters brainwaves. Environment shapes cognition. Group synchronization through sound and movement creates shared emotional and perceptual states. What prehistoric rituals achieved through drums and firelight, modern laboratories are only beginning to map with machines. Some ancient traditions spoke of humans communicating with the spirits of forests and rivers. Today, ecology and psychology are beginning to reveal how profoundly natural environments regulate human nervous systems. What our ancestors called spirits, modern science may one day describe as complex living systems. Intelligence is not centralized in brains, but distributed across ecosystems. What if ancient people were not imagining voices, but interpreting signals we have learned to ignore? Their relationship with time further separates them from us. We live by clocks, fragmented, quantified, relentlessly forward-moving. Prehistoric humans lived by cycles. Time was not something to be spent or saved. It was something to move within. Birth, death, decay, renewal, nothing was final. Even death was not an ending, but a transition. Ancestors remained present, woven into land, story, and ritual. This worldview shaped their psychology: anxiety about the future, obsession with productivity, fear of insignificance. These modern conditions would have made little sense. Identity was not isolated within the individual. It was distributed across clan, land, and lineage. To belong was to exist. And then, gradually, something changed. As agriculture spread, humans began to settle. Surplus replaced scarcity. Ownership replaced movement. Hierarchy replaced reciprocity. Knowledge shifted from lived experience to stored information. Writing preserved memory, but it also externalized it. What had once been embodied became abstract. We gained control, but we lost intimacy. The skills that once kept humans aligned with Earth became unnecessary or inconvenient. Sensory awareness dulled. Rituals became symbols. Stories lost their power to shape behavior and became entertainment. The old knowledge did not disappear suddenly. It faded slowly, generation by generation, until it was dismissed as primitive. Yet traces remain. Why do certain landscapes still feel sacred, even stripped of religion? Why does the human nervous system calm near water, fire, and trees? Why do rhythmic sounds, drums, heartbeats, waves, still alter our emotional state? These are not cultural accidents. They are biological memories. Even dreams may be remnants of an older mode of knowing. Prehistoric humans did not separate dreaming from waking life. Dreams were messages, warnings, rehearsals, maps of possibility. Modern psychology is rediscovering their importance, yet we rarely treat them with the seriousness our ancestors did. What if dreams were once a survival tool? And then there's the most uncomfortable question of all. What if prehistoric humans understood limits better than we do? They knew that taking too much breaks balance, that ignoring cycles invites disaster, that intelligence without wisdom is dangerous. Today we command technologies capable of reshaping the planet, yet struggle to live within it. We know more facts than any generation before us, and yet feel more disconnected than ever. What if forgetting was not an accident, but the cost of progress? As modern humans look toward artificial intelligence, space colonization, and synthetic worlds, it may be worth looking backward, not with nostalgia, but with humility. Because the knowledge we celebrate today is narrow, specialized, and often detached from consequence. The knowledge they carried was holistic, relational, and tested across tens of thousands of years. They did not write books. They wrote themselves into the land. They did not store data. They stored wisdom in stories that shaped behavior, not belief. And perhaps the reason their world endured so long, while ours trembles after only a few centuries of dominance, is because they remembered something essential about being human. As you listen, ask yourself, what would it mean to reclaim even a fragment of that forgotten knowledge? To slow perception, to re-enter cycles, to treat the world not as a resource, but as a conversation. Because the past is not gone. It is waiting. And perhaps the greatest mystery is not what prehistoric humans didn't know, but why we stopped listening to what they did. If this story made you question what progress truly means, if it stirred the sense that something ancient still moves beneath modern life, then you are already closer to that forgotten knowledge than you might think. Welcome to World Mysteries. And the question is no longer what did they know, but are we ready to remember?